The galaxy was endless, a dark ocean filled with stars, planets, and civilizations that had lived for thousands of years. Among these great empires was the Sarathi Dominion, proud and cold, known for their discipline and control. They believed in order, in structure, in perfection. Every decision in their society was calculated. Every life was planned. Children were not born out of chance or desire, but through science and genetic design. For the Sarathi, love was a weakness, and emotions were dangerous distractions. To them, the universe was not meant to be chaotic, it was meant to be ruled. But humans were different. When humans first appeared on the galactic stage, they shocked everyone. They were young compared to the ancient races, yet they spread quickly, adapting to worlds that others had failed to survive on. They were stubborn, reckless, and emotional. They laughed in the face of fear and cried when they loved. They were unpredictable, and that made them dangerous. The Sarathi often said humans were chaos wrapped in flesh. It was for this reason that Kara Tisal, a commander among the Sarathi, felt nothing but irritation when she was ordered to work with a human. She was proud of her heritage, proud of her discipline, and proud of her bloodline. To her, humans were crude, simple creatures who survived not through wisdom but through blind luck. The human she was assigned to was David Carter, a soldier from Earth. Kara had read his file before meeting him. It said he had fought in several wars, had lost comrades, and still chose to serve even when his own people questioned the cost. To Kara, this was foolish. Why serve when you could choose peace? Why sacrifice when logic said survival should come first? When she first saw David, she thought he looked unimpressive compared to the tall, graceful figures of the Sarathi. He was shorter, broader in the shoulders, and carried scars across his skin. His uniform was simple, his hair messy, and yet his eyes held something she could not name. Their mission was to act as symbols of unity between their people, to show that humans and Sarathi could cooperate. It was political, nothing more. Kara told herself she would keep the human at a distance, that she would complete her duty and then return to her people. But David was not easy to ignore. He did not act with the cold precision she expected. He was warm, almost annoyingly so. He spoke freely. He laughed at small things, and he often tried to include her in his humor. Kara found herself frowning at his every joke. Yet deep inside, she wondered why he never seemed afraid of her sharp tongue. One night, after a long day of negotiations, Kara noticed him sitting alone, staring at the stars. His shoulders were heavy, his expression far away. For the first time, she felt a strange pull of curiosity. She asked him what he was thinking. He turned his gaze to her and said softly, "I was thinking about home, about the people I couldn't save. Sometimes I wonder if they'd be proud of me or if I failed them." His honesty shocked her. Sarathi never spoke of weakness. They buried their emotions deep inside. Yet here was this human, opening his heart as if it were nothing. She didn't know if it was foolish or brave. From that moment, something shifted. She began to see him not only as a human, but as a person. His scars told stories. His laughter covered pain, and his eyes carried a strength that came not from training, but from hope. Kara told herself it meant nothing. He was still just a human. Their lives would cross for a short time and then separate again. But deep inside, in the place she had been trained to ignore, she felt the faintest tremor of something dangerous, something that had no place in her ordered world. A spark. And sparks, she knew, could grow into fire. The days that followed were filled with tension and subtle discoveries. Kara tried to maintain the distance she had promised herself, but David's presence was harder to ignore than she had expected. He moved through their missions with a calm she secretly admired, even when danger was close. Unlike the Sarathi, who relied on precision and control, David relied on instinct. Yet his instincts never failed him. During a supply run on a desert planet, their transport was attacked by raiders. Kara had prepared for the worst, expecting him to falter under pressure, to panic like the humans she had been taught to dismiss. But he didn't. He moved with confidence, protecting not only himself but her as well. Each decision he made was reckless, chaotic even, yet precise in its outcome. Kara could not deny it. He was impressive. Against her better judgment, admiration crept into her mind. She told herself it was merely respect for a competent ally, but her chest burned with a feeling she did not recognize. That night, in the temporary camp they set up under alien skies, Kara found herself standing near the fire while David tended it. He looked up at her with a soft smile. "You shouldn't be standing so far away," he said gently. "You're too tense. Let the fire warm you." She stiffened. "I do not need comfort," she replied. Her voice was sharp, but she could not hide the tremor in her tone. David chuckled softly. "Maybe not. But comfort isn't always about need. Sometimes it's about trust," Kara froze. Trust was not a word she often heard from humans. In Sarathi culture, trust was measured in actions and loyalty, not words. Yet she felt something twist inside her, a warmth, a light that made her heart beat faster. Days turned into weeks. Their missions grew longer, their time together more personal. David spoke of Earth, of oceans that glimmered in sunlight, of mountains and forests so vast that even he felt small. Kara listened, fascinated despite herself. Sarathi knowledge was vast, but it was always controlled, factual, without beauty or emotion. Here was a human who painted the universe with words, who made life seem vibrant even in the emptiness of space. One evening, after a mission in a frozen tundra, Kara injured her leg. She tried to hide her pain, but David refused. He carried her to safety, his touch careful, gentle, respectful. She wanted to protest, to push him away, but she could not. In that moment, something changed. Not just between them, but within her. She realized that humans with all their chaos could reach places in the heart that logic and control never could. She felt a pull toward him, a longing she had never experienced. Her training screamed at her to resist, but her body betrayed her, drawn to the warmth he radiated. When the firelight danced across his face, she noticed the faint scars of past battles, the quiet sorrow in his eyes, and a strength that came not from force but from hope. She wanted to ask him questions, to understand him, but words failed her. All she could do was watch. David, reading her hesitation, smiled gently. "Kara, you don't have to hide from me. I can see who you are," she swallowed, her throat dry. Who she was. Even she had trouble understanding now. A Sarathi commander, disciplined and proud, yet now captivated by a human who should have been beneath her notice. That night, as the camp settled into quiet, the stars stretching endlessly above them, Kara felt a tiny spark of fear mingled with curiosity. She had never been close to anyone like this before. She had never felt such pull toward another being, and yet, despite her fear, despite the laws and customs that bound her, she let herself sit near him, letting the warmth of his presence seep into her bones. Unknowingly, the first threads of connection were woven, threads that would bind them in ways neither could yet understand. Fate or chance had begun its quiet work, and soon, the world they knew would be forever changed. The days after the tundra mission were quieter, yet Kara could not ignore the storm brewing inside her. Her body, trained for years in discipline and control, began to feel strange sensations, twinges, warmth, subtle pulses that made her uneasy. She brushed it off at first, blaming exhaustion from the missions and harsh environments. But deep down, a whisper of worry gnawed at her mind. Then came the medical scans. Kara had been required to undergo a routine health check before their next assignment, something she had always completed flawlessly. The human medic, unfamiliar with Sarathi biology but competent, ran the usual tests. Kara sat with her arms crossed, expecting nothing unusual. She was in perfect health after all, or so she thought. The results appeared on the screen and Kara froze. Her eyes widened and her breath caught in her throat. The readout could not be correct. "Commander T-Cell," the medic said cautiously, "there are indications of reproductive activity in your system. Your hormones, they're unusual." Kara's mind raced. That could not be. Her species' reproductive cycle was complex, controlled by years of preparation, rituals, and chemical balance. Nothing happened by accident. Nothing occurred without precise planning. Yet the screen, glowing in cold blue light, confirmed the impossible. She turned sharply to the medic. "Explain this," she demanded, her voice tight with disbelief. "How can this happen?" "This is impossible." The medic's face was pale. "I'm just reporting what the systems are showing. I don't know how it's possible, but the signs are clear, Commander. You are—" Kara cut him off, her mind spinning. No, she would not accept it. She could not. The thought that a human could affect her biology so profoundly, so quickly, was intolerable. It went against everything she had been taught, against everything the Sarathi believed. Later, she confronted David in private. Her steps were swift, her chest tight with anger and confusion. He looked up from the small campfire, startled by her intensity. "David Carter," she said, her voice trembling but sharp. You have done something that should have been impossible. Do you understand what you have done?" David frowned, his hands raised slightly. "Kara, I don't understand. What are you saying?" Kara felt her fury boil over. "I am pregnant. Because of you. One encounter, and you have, against all reason, all logic, broken the natural order of my people." David blinked, stunned. He had never imagined, not for a moment, that something like this could happen. I didn't mean. Kara's voice rose, echoing in the silent room. "Do you have any idea what this means? My body, my life, my honor. Humans do not follow our laws. They interfere with destiny. And now," her voice broke, "now there is life inside me that should not exist." He stepped closer, gently, trying not to frighten her. "Kara, listen. I didn't know it was possible." She shook her head violently. "It is impossible. This is not supposed to happen. You cannot do this to me." David's eyes were soft, full of concern, sorrow, and an almost unexplainable hope. "Kara, maybe this is more than impossible. Maybe it is proof that life itself doesn't obey the rules we make. Maybe this child is meant to exist, and maybe we can protect it." Kara's breath caught. The words should have enraged her more, but instead, something deep inside her stirred. A mixture of fear, disbelief, and a strange, unfamiliar longing. How could a human, a simple, chaotic human, make her feel both outraged and connected? She turned away, staring out at the stars. Her mind was a whirlwind. Logic screamed at her to reject this impossible outcome. Yet her heart whispered otherwise. For the first time in her life, Kara faced a truth she could not control. Something had changed. Something had entered her life that no law, no training, no calculation could erase. And it had a name. David Carter. As the night wind whispered across the camp, Kara placed her hand on her stomach, trembling. A tiny spark of life had begun, and no matter how furious or afraid she felt, she could not undo it. Something impossible had happened. Something human had changed the world inside her. And for the first time, Kara realized that humans, chaotic, reckless, and unpredictable, were capable of miracles she could not even imagine. Kara could not sleep that night. The twin moons of the barren planet cast pale light across the camp, but even their glow could not soothe the storm inside her. Her mind raced, turning over every possibility, every consequence. The life growing inside her was forbidden, impossible according to Sarathi law, impossible according to biology, impossible according to everything she had ever believed. Yet it was undeniably real. She rose silently and walked to the edge of the camp, staring into the darkness beyond. The wind bit at her face, cold and unforgiving, but it was nothing compared to the turmoil within. Her people would see this as a scandal, a disgrace. They would call her weak, reckless, and contaminated. And yet, even as fear and anger raged, she could not deny the flutter of something she had never felt before. The strange, fragile bond forming between her and the human who had caused this. David had not slept either. He had followed her, sensing her unease without a word. He approached slowly, careful not to startle her, and said softly, "Kara, talk to me." She did not turn to him. "There is nothing to say," she replied, her voice sharp and controlled, though trembling. "You have destroyed my life, my honor, and everything my people have built." David's jaw tightened, but he did not argue. "I didn't know it could happen." "I didn't mean?" She interrupted, her voice rising. "Do you realize what you have done? One encounter, and you have upended centuries of law and tradition. You, human, have changed my destiny." David stepped closer, keeping his hands visible, a gesture of peace. "Kara, maybe this is not destruction. Maybe it's something new, something worth protecting." She whirled to face him, her eyes burning. "Protecting? Protecting what? Me from my people? Protecting a child that should never exist? No, you cannot understand. You are reckless. You do not follow rules. You destroy order. And now," her voice broke, "now you expect me to accept this as fate?" David remained calm, though his eyes glimmered with sorrow. "Kara, life doesn't always follow rules. Sometimes the most important things are the ones we never plan for." Her breath came fast. She wanted to scream, to run, to punish him, and yet her chest ached with something she could not name. He was human. He was chaos. He was everything she should reject, and yet, Her heart betrayed her, responding to his words, to his presence, to the quiet strength he carried. Kyra turned away again, her hands trembling. She stared at the stars, wishing she could retreat into the order of her training, into the cold certainty of logic. But no amount of discipline could erase the life forming inside her. She was Sarathi, yet she was powerless against the impossible. I will not, she whispered, almost to herself. This child. It is a mistake. David approached slowly, placing a hand lightly on her shoulder. Kyra, listen to me. We can face this together. You do not have to carry the burden alone. I will stand with you no matter what your people say. Her body trembled at the touch, though she pushed against it. She wanted to hate him, to reject him, to retreat into the rigid walls of her culture. Yet every time she looked at him, she felt something she had never felt before. Hope. And for the first time, Kyra allowed herself to admit, quietly and reluctantly, that the impossible could be real. That maybe, just maybe, humans were capable of more than chaos. Maybe they could change the galaxy and even her. She drew in a shaky breath, turning back to face David. Her eyes were a mixture of fear, anger, and something softer, something dangerous to admit. This is not over, she said, her voice low. But maybe we can try. David nodded, relief flooding his features. We will, he promised. No matter what happens, we will face it together. Kyra's heart clenched. She was terrified. She was furious. Yet beneath it all, a small spark of something new began to glow. A fragile connection. The start of a bond that could either save them or destroy them. And in the quiet night, as the wind whispered across the alien plains, Kyra realized that the fracture between them was only the beginning. The real challenge was learning to trust each other, even in a world that said they should not. The news spread faster than either Kyra or David could have imagined. The hybrid pregnancy, the impossible child, became the center of whispers, debates, and outright outrage on both sides. Among the Sarathi, Kyra was seen as reckless, contaminated, a commander who had lost control over herself. Her honor was questioned, her loyalty doubted, and the council debated harsh punishments. Some even called for her removal from duty. Meanwhile, among humans, David's actions were scrutinized as well. His superiors labeled him irresponsible, claiming he had endangered diplomatic relations and violated interspecies protocols. Every step he took was criticized, every word he spoke questioned. Yet he did not falter. His resolve, quiet but unwavering, was remarkable to those who knew him. Kyra could feel the tension pressing down on her, heavier than any armor she had worn in battle. She tried to follow her duties, to act like the disciplined Sarathi commander she had always been. But the whispers of her own people cut deeper than any blade. She could feel their judgment, their disgust, their disbelief. And yet, even with all the pressure, she could not turn away from David. He stayed near her, calm and patient, offering quiet support in a way that no Sarathi could. When her people questioned her decisions, David reminded her gently, Kyra, the rules do not define everything. Life, hope, and love, these cannot be controlled. Her chest ached at his words. How could she explain that the pull she felt toward him was stronger than fear, stronger than duty? How could she admit that her anger and frustration coexisted with a strange, tender longing? She could not. She buried it deep, pretending it did not exist. One evening, when the council of Sarathi elders arrived to interrogate her about the pregnancy, David stood at her side. Their presence was imposing, tall, rigid, eyes sharp with disapproval. But David did not flinch. He looked at the elders with calm defiance, his voice steady. This child is not a mistake, he said. It is life, and it deserves a chance no matter what your laws say. The elders' eyes narrowed, their voices raised. You, human, have interfered with Sarathi law, one shouted. You have endangered the honor of this commander and her people. David did not back down. I acted without knowledge of the consequences, but now that life exists, I will protect it. I will not abandon it, neither will she. Kyra watched him, her anger and fear mixing with a deep, unexpected admiration. She realized that humans, this human, were fearless not because they were reckless, but because they believed in something far stronger than rules: hope, loyalty, and the courage to stand against the impossible. That night, alone in the quiet of their camp, Kyra allowed herself to speak softly. David, you could have left. You could have ignored me, ignored this. Yet you did not. You are unlike anything I have ever known. David smiled gently, his hand reaching for hers. Because I care about you. And this child. We face this together, Kara, always. Her chest tightened. She wanted to push him away, to retreat into the safety of her training, but she could not. There was something magnetic about him. Something that made her heart beat faster despite all her fears. She knew that this bond, fragile and dangerous as it was, had already begun to change her. Days passed, and the pressure only grew. The council demanded she return to Sarathi space for judgment. David offered to accompany her, to face whatever consequences awaited them together. Kara hesitated, fear and pride warring within her. Yet when she looked at him, the human who had stirred a fire in her she could never ignore, she nodded. I will go with you, she admitted quietly, her voice trembling. But understand this, human. If we fail, it will not just be me who suffers. David clasped her hands gently, unwavering. Then we will succeed together. Because humans may be chaos, but sometimes chaos is exactly what the universe needs. As the stars stretched across the alien sky, Kara felt a strange mix of fear, anger, and hope. The battle ahead would not be against enemies wielding weapons, but against the rigid rules and expectations of two civilizations. Yet for the first time in her life she felt ready, not because she had control, but because she had someone willing to fight with her, even in the face of impossible odds. And in that moment, Kara realized that perhaps life, like humans, was stronger than law, stronger than fear, and far more unpredictable than any Sarathi had ever imagined. The journey back to Sarathi space was long and tense. Kara sat silently in the transport, staring out at the endless stars, while David remained close, offering quiet support without forcing conversation. The silence was heavy but not uncomfortable. It was a silence filled with anticipation, with fear, and with the unspoken understanding that everything they knew would change the moment they reached the council. Kara's mind was a battlefield. On one side was logic, duty, and honor, the pillars of her life. On the other side was something she had never encountered before, a strange, fierce loyalty, a fragile love, and the life growing inside her. The child was human and Sarathi, an impossible combination, a miracle, a crime. She tried to focus on her training, on reason, but the tiny spark within her would not be ignored. David sensed her turmoil. Kara, he said softly, placing his hand over hers. Whatever happens, you don't have to do this alone. We decide together. Her chest tightened at his words. To accept his presence, his help, her feelings was terrifying. To reject it, to obey the cold certainty of her people, was equally unbearable. For the first time, she understood the weight of choice. She could follow the rules and destroy a life that had already begun, or she could defy centuries of tradition and protect it. When they arrived, the council was waiting. The chamber was cold and imposing, filled with Sarathi elders whose eyes burned with judgment. Kara stepped forward, her posture rigid, her face a mask of defiance. David stood beside her, quiet but unwavering. The lead elder's voice rang out, sharp and unyielding. Commander Tassal, you have violated the laws of our people. You carry a child that should not exist. How do you respond? Kara felt her heart hammer in her chest. She looked at the small curve of her stomach, and then at David. She thought of the warmth he had offered her in the nights of quiet fear, the unwavering faith he had placed in her, and the hope that had begun to blossom in her chest despite everything. She took a deep breath, her voice steady but full of emotion. This child is real, it is alive, and it is a part of me. You may call it impossible, forbidden, or wrong, but I will not deny its right to exist. I choose life. I choose this child, and I choose to protect it. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. The elders' eyes narrowed, their faces hardened. You defy us? You risk everything? One demanded. Kara held her ground, her heart racing, but her mind clear. I defy you because life is stronger than law, because hope is stronger than fear, and because I will not let fear dictate the future of a living being. David stepped closer, his hand brushing hers. And I will stand with her, he said firmly. No law, no council, no tradition can undo what is already here. We will protect this life together. Kara felt tears prick her eyes, not from weakness but from relief, from courage, and from the strange, fierce pride she had never allowed herself to feel. She realized that humans, in their reckless, emotional, chaotic way, had taught her something her people never could. That courage was not just in battle, but in choosing love and hope over fear, The council was outraged, but Kara no longer felt the need for their approval. She felt David's steady presence beside her, and she felt the life within her, fragile, impossible, and beautiful. That was enough. That night, as they left the chamber, Kara's hand brushed against her stomach. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "I will protect you." "I promise," David squeezed her hand. "And I will protect both of you." For the first time in her life, Kara felt the freedom of choice, the exhilaration of defying impossible odds, and the quiet joy of believing in something greater than herself. The path ahead would be dangerous, uncertain, and full of opposition. But together, they would face it. Together, they would rewrite the rules of destiny itself. In the cold, calculated world of the Sarathi, one thing had become clear. Sometimes the strongest force in the galaxy was not logic, not order, and not law. It was the human heart. The chamber was quiet now, but the silence was different from the cold judgment Kara had faced earlier. It was the kind of silence that carried awe, disbelief, and, most unexpectedly, respect. The impossible had been done. A human and a Sarathi had defied centuries of law, defied the rigid control of an entire species, and created life where it should not have existed. Kara held her newborn close, feeling the tiny heartbeat beneath her hand. The child's skin was a delicate shade between human warmth and Sarathi luminescence, a living bridge between two civilizations. Kara's eyes softened as she studied the small fingers curling instinctively around hers. She had feared this child might be a symbol of scandal, a mark of shame. But in that moment it was nothing less than hope. David knelt beside her, his hand hovering protectively over hers. His eyes were tired yet filled with wonder and pride. "She's perfect," he whispered, his voice low. "She's everything we never thought could exist." Kara looked up at him, her emotions tangled. Love, fear, pride, and relief, all wrapped together in a knot she could not unravel. She remembered the rage, the disbelief, the fear that had gripped her when she first learned of the pregnancy. She remembered her anger at him, at herself, at the universe for allowing something so impossible. And yet now, looking at the small life in her arms, all that anger seemed to fall away. "She is ours," Kara said softly, her voice steady but full of emotion. "And I will protect her. No one, not my people, not anyone else, will take her from us." David reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "And I will be with you every step of the way. Humans may be reckless, Kara, but we also fight for what we love. This child, this life, we fight for it together." Kara allowed herself a small, almost shy smile. Her eyes sparkled with tears she could not hold back. "I never believed in fate," she admitted. "But perhaps, sometimes fate chooses through the heart of a human." Outside the chamber, whispers spread across the galaxy. Some were fearful, others curious, but all could feel that something extraordinary had happened. The child was more than a miracle. She was proof that humans, unpredictable and chaotic as they were, could achieve what no one else dared to imagine. A single human had challenged centuries of tradition, defied impossible odds, and reshaped the destiny of an entire species. Kara studied the child again, marveling at the tiny rise and fall of her chest. She whispered her promise once more. "We will teach you strength. We will teach you courage. And we will show you that love is the greatest power in the universe." David smiled, and for the first time Kara felt no fear. Not for herself, not for the child, not for the future. Together they had turned chaos into hope. Together they had proven that the human spirit, undaunted, fearless and endlessly creative, was capable of shaping destinies, crossing galaxies and breaking impossible barriers. The child stirred, tiny fingers grasping at the world she had just entered. Kara laughed softly, a sound of wonder and joy. "Yes," she whispered. "It is your world now too, little one. And it will be beautiful." David leaned close, pressing his forehead against hers. "First try," he murmured, a quiet joke that made her heart leap. Kara glared at him, though her lips trembled with a smile. "Do not make me regret this, human." "I would never," he said. And in the quiet of the chamber, beneath the endless stars, a new dawn began, not just for Kara, not just for David, but for the child and the galaxy itself. It was a dawn born of courage, defiance, and the impossible power of human will. For once, the universe had no choice but to watch as humans proved yet again that they could achieve the extraordinary. And this time, It began with a single heartbeat, a heartbeat that would echo across the stars for generations to come.